24 years old, living with your parents, no direction, no purpose, just a nagging feeling that life is passing you by. That was Phil Knight in 1962. Today, the company he built sells over $50 billion worth of products every year, most valuable sports brand on earth. And the story involves a fake company name, a betrayal that almost destroyed everything, a $25 million government shakedown, and secrets so dark they nearly ended Nike forever. This is the story of Nike. But more importantly, this is about patterns, decisions that separate empire builders from those who stay stuck. On this channel, we decode billion-dollar moves so you can apply the principles and avoid the mistakes. Before we dive in, hit subscribe. We break down billion-dollar decisions every single week. Let's get into it. Phil graduates University of Oregon with a journalism degree. Spent college running track under legendary coach Bill Bowerman. But after graduation, total confusion. So Stanford Business School, still searching. Then during a class assignment, Phil noticed something. Japanese camera companies like Nikon and Canon had completely replaced German cameras in America. German cameras used to dominate. Japan came in with quality at lower prices and took over. Phil wrote down a question that would change his life. Can Japanese sports shoes do to German sports shoes what Japanese cameras did to German cameras? German brands Adidas and Puma dominated American running shoes. But Phil heard the Japanese were experimenting with new designs at cheaper costs. He became obsessed. Genuinely believed there was massive opportunity to import Japanese shoes. When he presented it to class, nobody cared. Friends shrugged it off, but Phil couldn't let it go. After graduating, Phil moved back home with his parents. That familiar dread, life slipping away. Then he decided, stop waiting for opportunities. Go create one. Phil planned a trip around the world, but he had an ulterior motive. He was going to Japan, making his crazy shoe idea real. In Kobe, Phil discovered tiger shoes by Onitsuka. High quality, cheap, perfect. He cold called the company, arranged a meeting, bought a book on doing business with Japanese, memorized everything. Despite zero experience, he walked in and introduced himself as an American shoe distributor ready to market their products. Complete bluff. It worked. Onitsuka had been looking to sell in America. Phil rattled off statistics from his college assignment. Looked like he knew his stuff. They were impressed. Then they asked the obvious question, "What's your company name?" Phil's heart raced. He didn't have a company. His mind flashed to childhood Blue Ribbons. After a pause, Blue Ribbon Sports of Portland, Oregon, made it up on the spot. Onitsuka loved it, asked him to be their U.S. distributor. Phil agreed immediately. Months passed, no samples. Phil's dad laughed. "Son, that $50 is long gone." Then one morning, 12 sample pairs arrived. Perfect. Phil showed them to his old coach Bowerman, obsessed with improving athletic shoes. Bowerman loved them so much he offered to become Phil's business partner right there. Perfect partnership. Phil handled business. Bowerman brought expertise and credibility. They each invested $500. Ordered 300 pairs at $3.33 each. April 1964. 300 Tiger shoes arrived. Phil had shoes, a partner, a supplier. One problem, nowhere to sell them. Every sporting goods store dismissed him, so Phil sold them himself. Quick note, you're seeing how we present these stories visually. There's a reason. When ideas are presented visually, retention goes up over 60%. If you're building content, adding simple animations is smart. We recommend Instadoodle for this. Full transparency, that's an affiliate link in the description. If you buy it, this video earns a commission. Just being upfront. Phil started going to track meets, selling shoes from his car trunk. His enthusiasm plus Bowerman's connections sold out all 300 pairs in 3 months. When Phil had tried sales before, selling encyclopedias, he'd failed. But selling running shoes felt easy. Customers sensed his genuine belief. First year, Blue Ribbon sold $8,000 worth. They recruited sales reps, ex-runners who believed. Worked on commission. drove across America to every track meet. While Phil handled business, Bowerman tackled creative. He'd rip apart shoes, study construction, make notes on improvements, send them to Onitsuka. Bowerman was basically designing their shoes. One design, the Cortez, became the highest seller in '69. Blue Ribbon made $300,000. Business booming. Everything seemed great with Onitsuka. But Onitsuka was planning to stab them in the back. Phil arranged a meeting with Onitsuka rep Kitami. Strange meeting. Kitami said sales were disappointing. Didn't seem interested in renewing long term. Phil couldn't understand. His company earned the extension. Showed them a survey. 70% of American runners wore their shoes. When Kitami left the room, Phil found a folder in his briefcase. List of 18 U.S. distributors. Appointment schedule. Clear now. Onitsuka was secretly replacing Blue Ribbon. Phil confronted them. They gave an ultimatum. Either we buy 51% of Blue Ribbon or we find other partners. Phil rejected their buyout immediately. Time for war. Phil and Bowerman realized losing Onitsuka wasn't the end. Maybe opportunity. They could be more than distributors. The Cortez was Bowerman's design anyway. They started creating original shoes, but first needed a new name. Phil wanted Dimension 6. Nobody liked it. Then Jeff Johnson said an idea came to him in a dream. Let's call it Nike. Greek winged goddess of victory, Johnson explained. Phil honestly wasn't that keen, but they were running out of time. Nike it is. They recruited a graphic design student for a logo. She created the swoosh. Got paid $35. At a company meeting, Phil told employees, "Our partnership with Onitsuka is over. We're on our own. We have this new line called Nike, but big quality problems. No margin for error." Everyone looked defeated. Phil pivoted. In other words, this is the moment we've been waiting for. No more selling someone else's brand. Onitsuka held us down. This isn't a crisis. This is liberation. Relief around the table. Maybe this wasn't the end. Maybe the beginning. 1971, Blue Ribbon officially became Nike. Crossed 1 million in annual sales. From then, expansion skyrocketed. Revenue rose to 14 million in '76, doubled to 28 million in '77. Nike on huge upswing, gaining share, becoming fashion. But American brands were watching, waiting to strike. Things seemed great. Only problem, they were cash poor. Phil reinvested every penny. Then one morning, a letter. U.S. Customs, $25 million. Must be a mistake. If they owed $25 million, they'd be done. Over. The bill was real. Nike's competitors, Keds and Converse, scared of Nike's growth, lobbied Washington to enforce American selling price. Archaic rule from before Great Depression. If a U.S. company makes a shoe, anyone importing similar must pay 20% duty of competitor's price. Competitors made copies of Nike shoes, priced them extremely high. Nike imported from Japan, got hit with ridiculous fees, $6 per pair. Backdated 3 years, $25 million bill. Nike couldn't pay, would bankrupt them. Only option, fight. Phil hired the best lawyer. 3 brutal years in court. Nike produced a TV commercial explaining what was happening. Got customers on their side. Worked. Competitors realized Nike would fight with everything. Settled at 9 million instead of 25. In those 3 years, Nike grew tremendously. Sales hit 440 million. Could afford to settle. Made it through stronger. 1980, Nike went public. Killed cash flow problems. Phil owned 46%. Became very wealthy. Remember the parents who invested their life savings $8,000 to keep the company alive? After Nike went public, Phil told them their investment was now worth $1.6 million. Life-changing. Nike became bigger. Phil signed Chinese factories. Branched into clothes. Celebrity endorsements became key to success. Signed rookies like Tiger Woods and LeBron early. When they became stars, massively boosted Nike. Most lucrative, Michael Jordan. Spotted potential early. Signed him beginning of career. As Jordan rose, Air Jordans made hundreds of millions. By '86, Nike overtook Converse, biggest sports brand in America. You might think Nike is just incredible success, but behind success was dark secret. 91. Labor activist Jeffrey Ballinger published a report nearly destroying Nike's reputation. Documentary behind the swoosh claimed Nike used child labor, exploited people in poor countries. Workers lived in slums, shared toilets with hundreds, cramped in fire-risk factories, denied water, paid $1.25. Massive backlash. Protests. Boycotts. Universities cut ties. Sales dropped. Stock fell 15%. Phil promised to improve conditions worldwide. Nike spent a decade fixing reputation. To be fair, Nike did make changes. Many activists acknowledged efforts, but allegations never fully stopped. What's interesting, Nike turned controversy into profit. 2018. Nike launched Dream Crazy with Colin Kaepernick. Believe in something, even if it means sacrificing everything. Referenced Kaepernick's 2016 controversy kneeling during anthem protesting racial injustice. Nike's partnership controversial. Stock fell 2.5%. People destroyed Nike shoes, declared boycotts. Then something interesting. People who shared the sentiment came to Nike's side, started buying as support. Thanks to controversial marketing, Nike got more attention than ever, gained $6 billion in brand value, $163 million in media, 31% sales bump. Why take risks? Experienced marketing team assesses risk versus reward, makes calculated decisions. So what can we extract? First, action beats perfection. Phil didn't wait. Went to Japan, barely a plan. Made up company name on the spot. Sold from trunk. Timing's never perfect. Sometimes just move. Second, genuine belief sells. Phil failed selling encyclopedias. Running shoes felt easy because customers sensed conviction. Real belief makes sales natural. Third, partnerships amplify. Phil had business mind. Bowerman brought credibility and design. Together created what neither could alone. Find partners complementing weaknesses. Fourth, betrayal can be liberation. When Onitsuka tried replacing them, Phil could quit, turned it into opportunity. Stopped being distributors, became creators. Worst moments force best pivots. Fifth, never depend on one supplier. After Onitsuka, Phil built manufacturer network. Single points of failure kill companies. Sixth, fight when it matters. $25 million bill could have ended Nike. Phil didn't accept it. Fought 3 years. Sometimes survival means war. Seventh, take care of early believers. Parents who invested life savings got $1.6 million back. Loyalty to early supporters builds legendary teams. Eighth, controversy can be calculated. Nike's marketing doesn't create controversial ads by accident. They assess risk, predict backlash, determine if upside outweighs downside. Finally, success has dark chapters. Labor practices, exploitation. Building empires involves compromises that aren't clean. Doesn't excuse decisions, reveals complexity of global business at scale. Here's my question. What's your crazy idea? The one you keep putting off because timing isn't perfect? Because you don't have connections? Because you're scared? Phil Knight's story proves timing's never perfect. Sometimes you just go. Drop a comment. Tell me what you're building, what you're scared to start, or which part resonated most. If you want more breakdowns, subscribe. We decode billion-dollar journeys every week. Thanks for watching. Now stop watching and start building.